Hey everybody, welcome to a new segment on my channel. It's the title is tentative, but I think we might call it something East Coast, West Coast comics or something like that, because I'm joined with my friend Joseph Leonardo, who did Six Lords of Sound. And before we get into some of the stuff that we're going to do on the channel, and this is going to be like a regular Wednesday stream, I think. And so we will see what happens. And let's start with a little introduction. Joseph, you want to introduce yourself and give a little background on your art and stuff like
Oh
that?
yeah, like hey everybody, I'm Joe Leonardo. I'm one of the comic book creators that work with Alex Turbin on multiple different projects, and we're part of a conglomerate group of a lot of different dudes that are all working together to make projects, and we all work on our projects on our own, and everybody's just kind of learning and getting better. It's sort of like a bullpen kind of experience, even though we don't get to go to a bullpen every day, because most of us have regular jobs and all of us just do comics on the side. But we all work together and we're all getting better as artists because we're all experiencing each other's art in like real time, thanks to cool stuff like Instagram and YouTube.
Yeah, yep. I'm fiddling around with my camera trying to get the best view and stuff.
No worries.
Apparently
I actually
people,
set my camera up last night and did some experiments trying to get, like it nice and tight. So you know what I mean? So the whole
yeah,
image would be on there and
yeah. Well,
everything.
I'm trying to. I have me on the left and you on the right, and I think there's a spot for if people want to leave comments or ask questions or stuff. We
Oh
don't
yeah.
have any. Can you see whether we or not we have viewers or not?
I
Can you
don't
see
see
that
anything
stuff?
like that on my feed. Or no, it doesn't say. I have. It's like zero people and zero likes. So
Right,
like, yeah,
right. But that's okay because it'll take a little while, I think, for people to realize that this is going to be the time that we're going to be
oh, absolutely,
streaming, and
yeah.
so it'll take a little bit of time.
And even if
And
they, they don't catch it, and then they on the live side, they can always watch it later and check out the
yep,
art and all that
yep,
kind of thing.
yep. That's what I'm thinking too.
And we're going to keep it
So
short and sweet, you guys. And we're not going to overdo anything, and we're just going to kind of keep it tight and just talk about cool
yeah,
stuff and just look at rad art.
yep. This first stream, I really kind of want to just get to know you, Leonardo, um, and the work that you did Six Lords of Sound, and which you created it and I printed it, and just kind of maybe give some idea about where the show is going to go and some of the things that we want to discuss and stuff.
Oh yeah. Um, the book itself, is like it's basically a throwback from like what I was trying to create way back in the 90s. Like mostly everything you do, if you look at my art, you're gonna see like I'm a big time 1990s guy. And I just, the image stuff was like, what drew my level, really drove my level of creation that I was into. And so, even years later now, because I've really only started drawing in the last couple of years, it's just that 90s style, you know what I mean? Like if you look at my stuff, it's a sort of conglomerate of like guys like Jim Lee, Mark Silvestri, Walt Protasio, Michael Turner, and that kind of whole thing.
Yep,
And
yep.
Six Lords of Sound was actually a recreation of a team I had made way back in the 90s that was called Shadow Tech. And at that
Oh,
point,
that's cool.
they were vampire
Yeah,
hunters.
yeah.
And I have some old, art of those guys too, but I won't show that stuff today. Oh, look, we got 12 people watching now.
Yeah,
Nice. Hey,
yeah, I know.
stoked you guys are
So why
joining.
why
Like,
don't we why don't we go back a little bit further? Did you start? When did you start drawing?
oh, like, dude, I could bust out like, and I'll do this in one of the streams not too far off. I have art going back to when I was like 4 or 5 years old. Like,
Wow.
I have art pads, that go that back that far where I'm drawing like, oh, the 1970s, like, uh, GI Joes and redrawing my GI Joe color books. And I used to
Yeah,
love to
yeah.
draw Elvis because Elvis was kind of like a superhero to me when I was a child, because he was
Oh,
so
yeah.
because he used to wear all those like Captain Marvel Jr.-esque jumpsuits, with all the sequins on them and stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so when I was
yeah.
like a little kid, like in the fourth grade, I used to have a lot of Elvis posters in my room, and I would always try to like redraw the costumes and all the decorative like sequences on the costumes, and that's probably like where my love of detail comes from. Because like I'll show you stuff where like I'm trying to draw the red jumpsuit and I'm using a red pen to draw everything, or like I'd be drawing old TV shows like The Man from Atlantis, or
Yeah, yeah,
trying to draw Darth Vader from Star Wars after seeing it for the first time, and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Because
yeah, yeah.
like I just
Um,
became fascinated with it, as a little kid, and I'm just like I was fascinated with art first. Like first it was like I remember very vividly like coloring in in a coloring book, but it just being like scratchy, just like coloring all over. And then
yeah.
I looked at I'm the youngest of 8 kids, so then I looked at one of my older brothers, and his was like all perfect and all. And my mom's like, "Oh, well, you have to color in the lines," and then you're like, "Oh, dude, oh, you have to color in the lines," like you know
Oh,
yeah, and it's just this like progression, all of that stuff. But I have this really cool story where like when I was a kid, my mom, and I was probably very little, like, and I always thought this was like a super prophetic moment in my life. And like she was going into the post office at the time, and we went in the middle of the post office, there was a glass display case, and I guess they had Batman #1, and they had Wizard Comics #1, and they had like Superman #1, and I think they were just like on a tour, like on a display tour, being toured, like
yeah.
and setting up in like different libraries and in different post offices or whatever for people to view. And I remember thinking as a kid that my mom had taken me to that thing, like she was like, "Oh, he'd love to see this or whatever." And come to find out
Right.
years later, it was like, no, that just happened to be there. It was just she was just going to the post office. It just happened to be there, but it was like a very like meaningful moment in my life, and I was
Yeah,
just like, oh, I mean, that was my first place I discovered superheroes, and then after that, you
yeah,
just the fascination grows or whatever, that kind of thing. What
yeah,
about you?
yeah. It's I was always drawing. I always loved art. I think I started doing more sculptures with like that plasticine clay that you had as a kid. But I really didn't. I got into comic books late. Like I said, I always liked to draw and stuff, but I don't think I was really that good. I think I just was interested in it. And then like as soon as I discovered comic books, that's when my interest in drawing really peaked. And it's funny how you mentioned how you have this vivid memory. I think every artist has these memories that are like specific to their art, and like how like you use these memories to grow your art. Like I remember in the second grade, this very specifically about art, not comic books, but art in general, where the art teacher was like, it's time to stop drawing lollipop trees. They have branches and they have leaves. They're not just one big round circle. I don't know whether he was having a bad day or whatever, but he was like, that was
For
just
sure.
kind of profound for me, where, life isn't, just this kind of caricature or whatever. It has details and stuff. So that's one of the many um, facets or memories that I have of growing as an artist, I guess, even at
Yeah.
that young age.
Yeah, it's a different experience for everybody, and that's weird how everybody comes to the table in their own way. You know what I mean? It's a different thing that fascinates each person. For some people, it might be the humor. For some people, it might be being able to display the emotional content or something like that.
Yep,
That's why you get
yep,
such a wide variety of things when you're in something like comics. That's why it can be,
yeah,
all the way from like, you know, Rob Liefeld's, Young Blood, which is like the most superficial plastic commercial kind of thing, to like, Mouse, or something like that, which is
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
utterly profoundly, mature and what I
yeah,
mean, just
yeah.
like meaningful and
Well,
important or whatever.
yeah, yeah. Well, I always like I get really angry when somebody says that movie is very comic booky. I'm like, "Oh, so it has like action adventure, it's got humor, it's a western, it's a
Right.
horror, it's a, comic books are not just superheroes, which I think is what people mean to say when they say, this movie is comic booky or whatever. I think they mean to say it's superhero-y. Whereas,
Because,
that's like
you know,
saying it's a
no, go
it's
ahead.
a genre, or comics is a medium, not a genre.
Yeah, because like a lot of people won't make this association, but like Star Wars, when it came out in '77, it's a comic book movie. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's not made from a comic book, obviously, but it is emulating the sensibilities of comic book adventure. You know what I mean? It's
Right. Right.
emulating the sensibilities of a Flash Gordon or of a Buck
Yeah.
Rogers, or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not sitting there trying to tell you all these super profound ideologies that are, you could find as real textual things in existence. He's just making up stuff that's cool and fun and having this super fast fun adventure. It's prolific and meaningful because we attach all of our ideas to it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's a basic concept is like, laser swords and spaceships, and you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
laser
Yeah.
guns, and we make it profound by adding our humanity to it or whatever. And so, like,
Yeah.
when you say something is comic booky, like like you said, it can mean so many different things because comic books are so many different things to different people.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So, what was the first comic book you think you got?
Oh, it was I got it
Oh,
on
you
a trip.
remember it?
Like, it was like, oh yeah, I absolutely remember. It was on a trip to Texas. Like on one of those family adventures in the back seat, and we stopped in New Mexico somewhere, and I spied a copy of Legion of Superheroes that had a cover with Karate
Oh,
Kid
yeah.
on it.
Oh, that's cool.
You know who Karate Kid
That
is?
I my Legion of Superheroes starts at I think it was they changed it to just Legion, where it was Keith Giffen kind of took over
Oh, dude,
and
this is way back. This is like,
right,
what,
right,
maybe
right.
going to
Well,
be like
yeah, you're talking
76 or
about way, way back.
75 or something.
Right,
But yeah,
right.
Karate Kid was just like this sort of like super karate guy, and this like, it's very Luke Skywalker esque. It's just like a white
Yeah,
sort of gi or whatever, with like black pants and like, lace up boots kind of thing or whatever. But I just thought it was the
yeah.
coolest thing when I was a kid. Because it's like everything with me, it's always about the visual quality of things.
Yeah, yep, yep.
You know what I
One
mean?
of the
Like
great
someone could have
things
a worse story, but if it has great art, I'll still love it. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. One of the great things about us doing this stream and stuff is that you're like a DC guy and I'm a Marvel guy, and like we're both independent guys too. So it like it's going to be interesting to kind of go through your memories as DC and stuff, and mine as Marvel.
Yeah, I came to the Marvel stuff a little bit later. On Marvel, for me, is probably around the fourth grade is when I discovered that stuff and slowly started getting into it. Met some friends and stuff, and they kind of just like, because like, I grew up in the country and didn't have we didn't have cable TV for a long time, so I felt like the
Yeah,
Marvel stuff kind of came with like a lot of the kids that had cable because they all had like that old, you know. They were all
yeah,
watching, Spider Man. They were
yeah,
watching that one in reruns, and I
yeah.
just didn't have it, so I didn't know about it. So they were all turning me on to it, like through the comic books or whatever. But I think most of us came to it through like that old TV show.
Oh, oh, definitely. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, everybody has their introduction to comic books differently. Like mine was really like if anyone's ever seen my videos, when I moved in with my dad, when my parents kind of broke up and stuff, and like that was kind of a solitude part of my life, and I think that Uh, a lot of people have like disagreements with me on this, but I think a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but I think a lot of people they have a solitary point in their life, and that's when they really discover comic books because comic books can become so personal to you. And then like you it's every month you have this consistency and it's this personal thing, so it's becomes part of your life.
Yeah, I was the youngest of 8 kids. So like I think like I've always kind of like looked out for my solitude a lot. You know what I mean? Like when
Yeah,
I was growing up, I mean, I was a pretty popular kid. I mean, I'm like a surfer skater guy, and I was a
yeah,
musician in the 90s and stuff. So I have a lot of cool stories about meeting, like Ice-T and Beastie Boys and a lot of stuff like
yeah.
that. But
That's cool.
as a kid growing up, I was, and even as an adult, I'm a little autistic and just like sort of hyper aware, but not super verbal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I spent
yeah,
a lot of my time reading. I mean, when I was in fourth
mm,
grade, I already had a college level reading. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
when I was in fourth grade, I was already reading. Like I read Shogun and Taipan and just like all the fantasy stuff. Lord of the Rings, and you know what I mean. Like I was just
yeah,
munching
yeah,
that stuff down as a fourth
yeah,
grader. So comic books was just like another, way. Like I would read endless amounts of like Charles Schultz's collected, Charlie Brown stuff, and just anything, man. Like, if it had good humor, like I loved Richie Rich when I was a kid. That was one of my
Yeah.
favorite comics. I didn't just collect the superheroes. I love cartoons still, like good cartoons like Adventure Time or
Yeah.
Steven Universe, that create a cohesive universe and make sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I loved that stuff. So I loved Hot Stuff. I loved Richie Rich. Those were awesome to me. I probably enjoyed those more than the superhero stories or whatever. But the superhero stories have the art, you know what I mean? And that's where it always gets me, because like I always wanted to draw like freaking Alex Raymond when I was a kid. When I first saw the Flash Gordon stuff, you know what I mean? It was just
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what I want to be able to do right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you just want to bring it to as high level as detail as you can. And then like, I got sidelined. Like I was planning on being a comic book artist my whole life, but like growing up in the 70s, like I did, it just seemed like a very esoteric thing that I really never understood. Like it seemed to me like if you didn't live in New York City, you know what I mean? And you
Yeah.
couldn't
Yeah. Yeah.
go to Marvel Studios every day to work, then you would
Yeah.
never get a job working for them.
That's
So
what that's what I that's what I thought.
I
Yeah,
just put
too.
it away. You know what I mean? I just
Hey.
put the dream away because it just like I didn't live anywhere near there, and I wasn't gonna
Yeah.
relocate
Yeah.
from California to New York City. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
a pipe dream. So it
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
by the time I was a teenager, I was like, I'm gonna be a rock star or a pro surfer or a pro skater or something. You know what I mean? And like I just stopped drawing altogether until the image stuff landed. And then
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh, like look what these guys are doing. Like, holy crap. And then I went to
Yeah.
work again and got good again and got pretty close to getting in. I was actually asked to become part of a studio, but at the time I had already had kids and I already owned a
Yeah.
house and I
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
got married, and I couldn't just like leave my family behind to go live in a studio, you know what I mean, with a bunch
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
dudes or
Yeah.
whatever.
Hey, we got a comment from Daniel Goodwin. Can you see that? Can you
I
see the
can.
comments? It,
Dude,
yeah.
what's up,
Hey.
Dan? Dan, we're going to be featuring your stuff on here, and we're probably going to try and get you on one of these streams in the not too far future, because I have all the Sundays and space stuff. That's so funny that Dan is here, because I was just thinking about how we need to glow up a lot of the other guys. And I have like a stack of other, some of the other dude stuff right here or whatever. Like after and maybe we'll get to that like this, or maybe we'll get to that in future streams, but we're definitely
Yeah.
going to touch base on all the dudes we work with and all their
Oh,
cool art,
definitely.
and see if we can't maybe get them on here at some point, and just talk to the other people about making comics, because that's what this is all about. It's just all about rad art, making comics, and how much we all love comics and rad art.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much, pretty much. Well, we can't really stream with multiple people yet because we don't have the technology.
Well, then
But
we'll set it up so you and him work together
yeah,
on
yeah,
an episode or something. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and
yeah, something like that.
maybe we'll do a preview, break in before where we cover all their work, and then in the next episode you can have them on for or you know
Yeah,
what I mean, like that kind of thing, so we can feature the other artists and whatever they're capable of or whenever they're capable of doing it, because this technology crap is all hard for all of us old dudes.
yeah, yeah. I know. Definitely have a hard time with all this techno stuff, but I'm
Yeah,
learning a little bit, little bit. Maybe we'll get that. What the turbo guys use? They use that river something. Um, but maybe I'll get that, and we'll see about getting a stream on with everybody. So this is the color version of what you're showing, the Six Lords of Sound, and
that's the actual comic book. Yeah, that's
yeah,
the
yeah.
awesome.
But this is I have a one of the real ones that I made. This is a because when I print comics, I make like three or four versions, and each one getting better and better. Like you can see the margin here and stuff. So
Sure, sure.
and all of this stuff here. So this is like a second or third iteration before I straightened everything out as much as I
Right,
could.
right. As you're
But
slowly pulling it all together. Yeah.
but what I loved about this was you have so many double page spreads, and you have that thing in the middle, the 3 page thing, and this was like a really good challenge for me to get it all together. Where um, we'll see a double page spread like this page here, where they actually come together. That is pretty challenging when you're printing.
I can only
Like
imagine.
this is what's that?
I said I could only imagine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it came together perfectly. Though, like I said, this is just the demo
Oh yeah,
copy or
dude. No,
whatever.
you did a really great
Um,
job. I was totally pleased with all that. And
yeah,
incredibly,
yeah. It
come on, like the money you charged for that was so reasonable. It's ridiculous,
Yeah, yeah. I don't. I mean, I understand how printers they have to pay their employees and all of this kind of stuff. But I still think that you know if you're doing like I did what 30 copies for you, 25
Yeah,
copies like that.
yeah, it was like
If
30
I can
copies.
do it at that price range for that
It,
amount, then why can't they do 1,000 copies for something like that? I don't know. It's hard to say because like I said, they have to pay their employees, they have to advertise and all that stuff. So I kind of understand why printing is a little bit expensive, but at the same time it should be cheaper. It really should
it
be.
should. Well, it'd be nicer if it was, that's for sure. It'd be a lot more accessible. More people would be doing it.
Yeah, 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 that's true. And also, I mean, the Marvel and DC books, I've said this to so many people. I just wish that they would go back to newsprint and cheaper paper and, you know, print more of them, get sell them for $2 instead of this $5, $6 nonsense.
Well, it's a real bummer that comics aren't in like, the 7-Elevens anymore and that kind of thing. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Because so many people discover them in places like that. Like not
yeah,
everybody's got a comic book shop near them and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Some people just,
yeah.
when I was a kid, I bought my comics at a little corner store at the Corlides Market. Freaking was a long time before I was able to go down to, discover a comic book shop. I was probably,
Oh,
10
yeah.
or 11 years old by then.
Yeah, yeah. I was even older, I think. But yeah, like first I started getting comics at what was called Mr. Paperback, and that was just like a bookstore. And but then like 3 or 4 or 5 years later, then the comic book shop started up. But I just miss being able to go into the comic store, spending $20 and getting 10 comics or 15 comics or whatever. And now I go into the comic book store like last week I went in to get um that Batman, what's it called, not Beyond, um Batman,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
absolute
yeah.
Batman.
I feel like that's sort of like it's like DC Comics attempting to do a Ultimate Universe or
Yep,
whatever.
that's 100% what it is. I think there's some event that happens that leads up to this absolute thing, but we should get into that another time about this whole absolute thing. But I went in there to get that and the new Wolverine comic, the Ultimate Wolverine comic, and I left with 4 comic books, and I spent what 25 $28, something like that, on 4 books. And I'm like, are you joking? Are you kidding? So
Yeah,
that's
that's a
just a bummer.
steep. That's steep. It is. Hopefully,
Yeah.
they're all great books. You know what I mean? One
Yeah,
one
they're
would hope.
yeah, hopefully. But I'll be getting into, especially that's what I'm gonna be going over on Friday is the Ultimate Wolverine, which is right here. There's like all these different covers for it, and this is the painted one. So I'm going to be going over that. I haven't read it yet, but so I'm eager to get into it.
That'll
But
probably be
it's
badass.
I think it's a whole new imagining of the ultimate stuff. So that'll be good for me because I'm not really versed in all of the ultimate universe and all that stuff.
Well, let's talk about the comic real quick here because I know we're
All
burning up
right.
our time, and I don't want to be
Yeah.
on this for too long because I know
Yeah.
people don't like to
Definitely.
watch these things for too terribly long. But anyways, like just to touch base on this kind of thing, the Six Lords of Sound was actually I kind of came across as a sort of like almost Stanley kind of thing where I was working with a guy doing a magazine. The magazine was called Still Listening, and if you'll see in the book, sometimes I'll reference that thought. Like
Still
sometimes I
listening.
call the band will be called the Still Listening or whatever. Like that's what they're called legendarily in their universe or
That
whatever.
that was a
But
magazine.
yeah,
Still
yes,
listening.
you can actually follow it on Instagram. They have an Instagram site, Still Listening.
Is it a comic book or is it
No,
a like a
it's like
music?
a Rolling Stone. It's sort of like an online Rolling Stone. They're out of England,
Uh, oh,
and
like Kerrang. Do you
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
correct?
They're just like a,
Yeah,
rock and roll magazine. And he was like,
yeah,
"Hey, we love your art. We'd love to feature it. He goes, would you do a comic strip for us where the musicians are like superheroes, but they're like musicians or whatever?" And I was like, "Oh, that's kind of a cool idea." Like, I mean, I just thought about it for a minute. And then, like, literally, this whole thing, it's kind of like, like Stanley coming to Jack Kirby and being like, "Hey, come and invent the Fantastic Four or whatever." You know what I mean? And he just
yeah,
give you the
yeah,
basis idea, and you just come back with all this crap or whatever. And like I said, these guys had already existed in my head because I'd already done a book with these type of looking characters. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and they're like basically like an X-Men kind of thing.
yeah.
But in this particular version, instead of them being like, in the first one, they were like cybernetically enhanced vampire hunters or whatever.
Oh,
But
yeah,
yeah, in this iteration, like I recreated the whole idea. And what Six Lords of Sound is about this guy right here. His name is Adam Rath, and his title is the Master Blaster. And he's the leader of Sonic Force. And Sonic Force is the actual name that the Six Lords of Sound go by. Like X-Men or whatever, like the Avengers. So the book is not called Sonic Force. The book is called The Six Lords of Sound because that's kind of who they are in legend or whatever.
right,
Like
right.
they're called the Still Listening or the Six Lords of Sound. And they come from a universe or like a corner of the galaxy where everything is powered by music. They open portals to other dimensions using music. They power their cities with music. Music is the ultimate art form. Music is what, draws their civilization together. That powers their spaceships. It powers their weapons. And Master Blaster is like the apprentice wizard to this dude, Lord Hush, who has a secret name, what I won't say here because that's revealed later on.
Yeah.
And they're doing an experiment where, he's trying to open a portal to another dimension to gain the most powerful musical energy that could ever be, contained. And he accidentally gets sucked into this like black hole that destroys the lab. And he's gone for like 10 seconds. And when he comes back, he's Lord Hush. And he's this silent
Oh,
necromancer. And what's happened
right,
is
right.
he gets sucked into this anti-void world where there is no sound, where it's just like the silence of death, and he becomes like a part of that world. He spends essentially like a decade there becoming this monster, learning to survive there. But for the people in the lab, for Master Blaster and Starbright and Frostbite, who are really the princesses of this kingdom, it's instantaneous. And there's a big, huge, battle. Master Blaster manages to get the girls away, and there's a whole series of stories that would go with all that. And now, like the whole story, like what I wrote, is essentially like the end of a movie. Like if you were watching Star Wars, my comic
Right.
book encompasses like the Death Star run, essentially, is what you're seeing.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
like just the last few moments of the story, as the whole thing plays out. So the idea was to get people like hooked on the idea, and get people excited about the art and the characters, deliver a really powerful story, that kind of does like what a book like Youngblood set out to do, was kind of my
right,
goal,
right,
which was to say like
right.
I just wanted to draw nonstop, just like a nonstop fight scene or whatever. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what Youngblood One was. Like it was just
Yeah,
like just nothing but the fight or whatever. And
yeah,
that's kind of goofy or whatever, but at the same time, it's a fun idea.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that was essentially, what I was trying to do and what I'd accomplished with this first issue. And then, it's all about creating a level of like art and a level of freaking um detail to where you're satisfying your need or whatever, or just like whatever. Like I'm just trying to get myself to a level to where I could look at the art, and some part of me is like, okay, like I think this is good or whatever, or like, because I mean, like I never hardly ever look at my own stuff and just be like, wow, that's so great. Like I mean,
yeah,
that's not, I don't
yeah.
think that's really burned into most artists. You know what I mean?
No, no.
Um,
There's very few instances where I'm like, This is really awesome. I mean, there's a few things where I just know they're good, and I just know they're awesome. Like my mummy thing. I think that's one of the best things I've done. But yeah, you're right. For the most part, I think every artist is like, is this good? Is this trash? You don't really
Yeah.
know.
So you're just pushing it and pushing it. And I mean, I'm super influenced by other artists, like you see a lot of guys, like I said, like Mark Silvestri, a lot of like, I do a lot of like whilst portatio kind of tropes or whatever, which is to
Yeah,
say like you'll always see me do like these cheekbone things and stuff like
yeah, oh yeah,
cheekbone things right here or whatever. Like, and I do a
yeah,
lot of like black spotting, like whilst portatio does, like these little monster goblin guys right here. They're very reminiscent of like the characters from the darkness or whatever. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I'm not exactly breaking the bank with brand new ideas. You know what I mean? It's just mostly about like just trying to get a cool story and cool looking things on the screen. And
yeah, yeah,
you're trying to, I'm trying to like do a movie or whatever. You know what I mean? You want it to feel like a big
yeah,
budget
yeah.
experience
You
for
want it?
people, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
bigger
Like,
than life.
yeah, I mean, I'm always trying, like, dude, like that dude's flipping upside down with his guitar or shooting a freaking ray, you know what I mean? There's a
Yeah,
full on, like, gilded looking sort of like opera house background behind him, and dudes up
yeah,
in the air, like floating around in the anti-void monsters that they're fighting off. It's like, you're just like trying to just bring it or whatever, you know what I mean? And
right,
get people
right, right,
excited
right.
about the ideas. The harder thing for me is the silent stuff, you know what I mean? Like when they're sitting around the room talking to each other and being
Yeah, exactly.
human,
Me too.
like
Me too.
that's the hard
That,
stuff.
yeah, especially because it's boring to draw, so it
Yeah,
makes it doubly hard.
yeah, it's super hard. But
So
yeah, we already hit our half-hour mark, and I know we don't want to
yeah,
keep dudes around for too long or whatever. But
yep,
hey, we
yep.
got five people on here, and that's way more than I thought. I thought it'd be just me and you talking to the void for a while. So shout out to these five dudes that are sitting there
Yeah,
watching right
thanks for
now,
watching.
and whoever gave us the one thumbs up. Shout out to Dan Goodwin for giving us a shout out back. Like I said, we're gonna definitely be featuring everybody's art on this stream. This is gonna be happening once a week, and if we can start build up a like for this, we may very well make this its own channel, and like Alex said, be like comic books from coast to coast with East Coast Alex and West Coast Joe. And
Yeah, yep, yep.
we'll be, covering all the cool comic book stuff out there.
Yeah,
So it's really great to
yeah.
hear from all you guys. Alex, you got anything you want to say before we close it out?
Yep, I'm going to do my little promotion here. This is Random Access. You can check this out at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin. And or you can go to my website, alexanderturbin.com. And this is the newest issue. It's a printing of the Instagram um, cartoon strip or comic strip that I did, a daily comic on Instagram, and it's just kind of printing that. And but at alexanderturbin.com, you can also get Mutandus and Forlorn and Cyrene and all of my other comic book stuff that I've worked on, Death Knights and stuff like that. So that's my plug.
Awesome. Well, everybody, you guys know what Alex always says when he's done with his streams. Rock and roll out
Yeah,
there, and everybody keep on creating.
yep. Keep on creating and check us out every Wednesday. We're going to be here between 2 and 3 or thereabouts. And we're going to be doing reviews and maybe we'll do some just some drawing and stuff or some. I really have some good plans. I want us to review, like I was telling Leonardo, that I really want us to review the Conan soundtrack and some other
I
comics.
love
I want
that.
to do some image comics and some stuff like that. And I think that would be really fun.
Oh, it's going to be a blast, dude. I'm hecka looking forward to it. I hope everybody out there continues to join us for this. And you guys all have a great day.
All right, yep. And that is a wrap. Thanks for watching, and like you said, keep on creating.